Hello again, everyone. Mary Rose here at Stitch Bliss Corner on February the 5th, 2022. Now, there's a mower that seems to have hiccups out there today. I think he's finished mowing and then he starts again. Then he stops, then he starts, then he stops, then he starts. So I've decided now I'm just going to push on regardless of what is going on with that motor mower's digestive system. So anyway, I hope things are going well for you. They've been pretty quiet around here, which I think it's an old Japanese saying that an uneventful day is a good day. So I've already started with the homespun wisdom and we're only 50 seconds in. So that's probably a new record even for me. Now, I'd like to thank all of those people who commented on my last video, in which I talked about my health challenges, what happened with my eyes with acute glaucoma, and then fracturing my humerus, and then after that having pulmonary emboli. And I was very humbled by a lot of people sharing about their family and themselves and what had happened to them and how they got through those challenges and everything. And I realised how lucky I was and am. I know the morning that I woke up in intensive care, because I've always been a very... oh, by the way, if you want to know what all these issues were, at the start of my last video, I talk about them there, just in case you're wondering. There's nothing worse than getting half of a story and wondering what happened. So if you want to know, just go back to that video and have a look. But yes, when I woke up in intensive care, you know, it's funny how the Almighty talks to you and uses people to pull you up and just give you a little lesson anyway. And because I'm a very independent person, I don't like anyone doing anything for me, and I don't like to feel that I'm a nuisance to anyone. So I always try to do everything that I can for myself. And when I woke up, I was lying there thinking, I've broken this right arm, I can't use it. My left arm was very heavily bruised, and fortunately for me I could use it quite a bit, more than I thought I could at that time anyway. And I said to the nurse who was looking after me, oh, I said, in all my 68 years, I said, I've never had a night as bad as last night. And she fixed me and looked at me and she said, then you have been very lucky. And I looked at her and I said, you're right. You are absolutely right. And I just felt so much better after that. Everything was so much easier for me. And I thought, well, that just was the message that I needed at that time, just to get me past that little bit of a pity party that I was probably heading for at a rate of knots. So that was very good. And then the other thing that occurred to me was... I was getting these flashbacks once I got home and everything about when I actually went over, when I fell, because I did go, I tripped, and I had a lot of velocity behind me when I went down, and it was just blam, you know, went down, went blam, basically. And I was just getting the flashbacks of when I went down and thinking, what has happened? And then my reason started to work. And it was basically saying to me, just imagine if you'd fallen backwards instead of forwards, the damage that you could have done to your skull. And then I thought, that's much better that I went forward. And then I felt a lot better after that, and I stopped getting the flashbacks. So just by imagining something worse that could have happened, which was a comfort to me. But anyway, I think I'll get off this now, because I think I've probably bored you quite long enough. Let's get on to the important thing, which is the stitching. So it would be very nice to update you on Dear Guest from Far Away, which is this one that I absolutely love. But I have not been working on that one for a very good reason, that I was saying in my last video that I didn't like to leave people not seeing everything that I'd stitched completed. And a very clever person pointed out that I had not shown Skating Minister. And that was a very good reason, because I hadn't finished him. And he'd been sitting there for a while. And I think it was because I was stitching him and am stitching him on 28 count, 1/1. And it's a challenge. I do have the magnifier here, but I don't like using it. It just, I put it down there and I just can't get in the right position. And I feel like I'm on a ship float, bobbing around on. It just doesn't work for me anyway. I mean, it's good for having a scan over your stitches to see if you've missed any crosses and that sort of thing. But other than that, I really don't like using it. And the only magnification I use for my stitching is my glasses. And I do like it like that. I've got one of those magnifiers you can put round your neck and everything. But I really don't want to use that unless I absolutely have to. And I have the same problem with that. I can't quite get it lined up properly. So, it's all a bit of a nightmare. Anyway, so Minister had been sort of sitting there. And I thought, well, I do really want him on my wall. And so I thought to myself, I'm going to have to stick in and actually get him done. So he's not finished yet, but he's well on his way. So at this point, I would just show you the stages of where I picked him back up again. I started him up in November sometime, and I'll just get Harlequin to slot in a few of the progress pictures, and then you can come back to me. Yeah, so that's as far as I've got. So I'll just show you the picture of Skating Minister. Now, as you can see, it was an original painting by Henry Raeburn in the late 1700s, and he's skating here on Duddingston Loch. So as I said to you, it's 1/1 on 28 count. Now, as you can see, he's got a very big loch or lake that he's been skating on. Apparently it was the first figure skating group in the world, and he's got this where he's got his arms across him. Apparently that's supposed to be a very efficient way of skating, but it's really quite difficult to do it. Now, the problem I had was because of my eyes, after the acute glaucoma, I really don't want to tax them too much. So I was presented with the problem of reducing the amount of area that I had to stitch. And I didn't really want to do that because it's an original painting and I would like to have done all of the background just as it is. But then I thought, well, I was I just, something had to give because I do want to get onto my Russian painting as well. So I thought, well, I'll get Harlequin to talk to me about it. And we discussed the problem. And this is where it's very handy to have an engineer in your presence, because he suggested the following. Now I'll just show you. Oh my goodness, I know how to build the tension, don't I? That's what he suggested. And it's still got quite a bit of the background in it. And an oval frame for him, I think, is just perfect. So you don't actually have to have the frame oval. As long as you've got an oval match, you can still have a square frame round it. So this is what I decided to do. And then, of course, I was presented with the quandary of how to do an oval around him. Because, as you know, I do grid and everything. And Harlequin came to my rescue, and he pinned the paper to all round him and did a wonderful job. And he made a template for me, for my minister. So what I did was I put that round him, and then I tacked it. You'll be able to see what I mean in a minute because I'll show you. But I mean, without his assistance, it wouldn't have worked out, I'm sure, because I'm just not a maths person, as everybody knows. I can't measure anything. Well, I can measure it, but it's never right. I mean, some people are mathematical and some aren't, and I've always admired people who are good at maths because, I don't know, I must have been behind the door when skills for maths were handed out. Anyway, so there's the oval there that I've tacked, Harlequin's beautiful oval that he did for me. And down here, that's pencil there, because as I get closer I just pencil it in. But he's coming along quite nicely. It's sort of difficult to show the details on him because it's very dark, because this particular pattern was one that it was a computer one. Now, Scarlet Quince has a chart out for Skating Minister, but I don't know what that would look like once it was stitched up, because of course we produced our own pattern for him. But if anyone's interested in stitching Skating Minister, maybe they could have a look at the Scarlet Quince version and see if it would appeal to them. But you can see the detail there on his skate. There's the tip of his skate there, and the little buckle on his leg. And there are folds here in his coat, but you can't sort of see them on the camera, but you can certainly see them with the naked eye. And his stockings, they're just, this 1/1, it looks like a wool stocking. And he's got there's a little band on this leg, but you can't kind of see it on here. But he's got a band on this leg as well, maybe a little bit, you can see it there. And there's his other skate. So I'm very pleased with his progress. I don't do pattern keeper, so I can't tell you how much percentage I am. But I suppose you could say I'm over halfway, heading towards, once I get this bit done, which will probably take me, a week or so. People say that I'm a quick stitcher. And I'm not really a quick stitcher, but I'm not a slow one either. But I do plan everything so that it's quicker. I mean, gridding makes a huge difference to the time it takes to do any stitching. I don't know how anyone can stitch a full coverage piece without gridding. I'd just go crazy with all the counting, and I wouldn't know where I was. But anyway, that's me blabbing on again about gridding. And of course, if I'd have had my time again with it, I probably would have done half stitches for the background, because then he would have stood out more. But I'm stuck with it now. I'm just doing the full crosses. But I won't be doing 28 count again, I wouldn't think, unless it was very small, because it's just too taxing at my age for the eyes and everything. But, the detail on his face and his curls here, that Harlequin likes his curls, it's worth it for that, and for the end result, I'm thinking. Now, I was asked also to show the back of my gridding, so I'm just going to do that now on here. Now, that's what the back looks like. Now, you'll notice here that these threads here are actually wool. It's woolen thread. My daughter got a sort of a toy machine, sewing machine thing. It was called a patch pizzazz. And it was a little bit like a punch needle. That's what it looked like when you'd finished with this machine. And this wool was on bobbins that the machine punched into the material. And I used this wool because when I was, this fabric, the 28 count, I find it to be a little bit frustrating. I think it's it's worth it for the fineness that you get if you're doing skin. But there goes that mower again, honestly. I don't know what they're doing out there. But the actual threads are really quite delicate. And what was happening was, when I was using my usual cotton to do my gridding, it was slipping underneath some of the threads, so you couldn't see the gridding properly. So I was presented with a problem there, so I solved it with this wool thread that doesn't go anywhere. It just stays put until I decide to pull it out. So it's been so handy for me, because I don't know what I would have done otherwise. So that's the back of my gridding for the person who asked about that. I was going to say something. Oh, yes. This material, I'll just show you what I mean about how... it's not doing it now. It only does it when you don't want it to. Just show you there. Can you see there how easy it is to pull it apart? I mean, you can equally pull it back into position fairly quickly, but nonetheless it's a bit disconcerting when you're stitching something like this and you see an area where it's pulled, you know, where you've put your hoop on and it might have pulled in that area, but you can pull it back into position. Now, also, people have asked me about what size hoop I use. I usually use this one, which is, have a look here, got my tape measure handy. About 6 inches, which is about 16 centimetres. But don't take my word for it. I have told you about my lack of mathematical prowess, shall we say. Yeah, it's over 6 inches, but not much over, which is around 16 centimetres. So usually I use one this size, sometimes a little bit bigger. And when I'm actually putting my hoop onto my work, I usually try to put it over the stitched part first, and then the screw part and everything goes on the part that hasn't been stitched, so that when if you put your stitching inside in first and then put that side in, if it pulls, it just pulls on the bare fabric, not on your actual stitched parts. But I have noticed that when you take the hoop off, even if it has marked you or, you know, pressed your stitches down, they do bounce back, especially when you wash it at the end and iron it and everything. Everything flattens out very nicely. So anyway, that's Skating Minister. And let me see if there's anything else I had to tell you about him, because I don't want to forget. Now, if I remember, I will get Harlequin to put a small video that someone made in, I think it's one of the Scandinavian countries anyway. They put music to the Skating Minister, and they had someone actually skating on a lake in the Skating Minister's outfit, and it's really rather sweet. So I'll see if I can get him to put that. If it's still on the internet, I'll get him to put a link for you so you can just have a look at it, because it's really nice. So anyway, that's an update on the Skating Minister, and I am going to keep going now with him until I finish him before I go back onto the other, because I don't, when I did a little bit of Skating Minister, the 1/1 on the 28 count, and then I went to my 18 count just to do a bit more stitching on the Russian one, and it looked huge to me because, of course, my eyes were used to the smaller stitching, and anyone who's stitched on 28 count will tell you it's like stitching on pinheads. The effect is great, but you know, there is the price to pay about how tiny those stitches are. So yeah, I didn't want to just go from one to the other, so I thought, well, since November I've got this far, so hopefully in the next couple of months he should be very close to being finished, which will be just wonderful. Get him down to that framers, and I'll have him on my wall. I might put him behind me here, who knows. He probably needs to keep an eye on me. Now, the other thing I was going to say, just to the person that was asking me about my gridding, I did was able to grid rise above, ready to start. I'm thinking that it's possible that I will start rise above at the same time as I'm doing the other one, just so that I can start it, because I've been wanting to start it for about 2 years, and it would be nice to do that. Now, I think you can sort of go between two. I mean, I don't know how people go through lots of whips You know, I mean, I think it's great that they can do it. But in my case, it takes me a while to sort of get into the groove of the piece that I'm stitching. You know, you get into that sweet spot where you're fully aware of everything, all your colours, and if you sort of know if you've picked up the wrong colour, or, you know, because you're so much in harmony with what you're doing. And I think I would find it quite jarring to go from that to a completely different piece and then sort of start to reorientate myself, and I just don't think I could do it. Well, I could do it, but I wouldn't enjoy doing it, put it that way. Anyway. So, and here is my gridding when I just use cotton. And I usually use, as you can see, a different colour. So I'll use, I've got yellow there, and then I've got green, then yellow, then green. Just because for some reason it helps me, it differentiates between the lines. And then there's the back for that person that was curious. I'll just show you back in there with the minister. What I've done as well is, if you can see down here, I've done what I call scaffolding, and I've got my woolen grids there, as you can see, but what I do when I get close to my next lot of stitching, I go over and make like scaffolding where my grids were, and then I pull the grid out. So I've still got my 10s, my boxes of 10, and then I can just, once I've done my stitches in there, I can cut that and just get rid of that thread down and that thread across, and then I go on to my next one. I find that a lot better as well, because for some reason I just find it easier for me. But yeah. So that's him all sorted out. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about today was Stitchy kindness. Now, I think anyone who's watched me for a while would know that I have a great affection for Kitty Stitcher, Kerry, who lives in the UK. I have a great deal of admiration for her because she has a chronic illness and she gets very fatigued and tired and has problems with concentrating, and she has problems with her muscles. They're quite weak, and problems with her joints and everything else. And yet she just manages to keep on going. She manages to have a great outlook on life, because life can be very unfair, and it can do things that, you know, good people, and horrible things happen to good people. And, you know, I suppose you could say that the way people deal with their challenges shows their true character, and just how much depth they have as people. And Kerry's one of them, put it that way. And we have contact, you know, we've had some contact with each other, and we stitched for each other, and she has sent me her stitching, and her stitching from me is now at the framers, and he said it'll probably take a couple of weeks. But if I know him, he'll probably have it done a little bit earlier than that, but he likes to under-promise and over-deliver, which is wonderful. And I'm going to show you Kerry's gift that she sent to me. The first thing I'll show you is that she sent me this dear little bracelet. which I should just get out of there. Let's see. It's got a butterfly on it. And she and I, even though there are many years difference of age-wise, we do tend to have the same likes and dislikes. Not that I know much about her dislikes, but butterflies. We both love butterflies. And she loves the colour purple, which I do as well. And even her crosses, she goes from, her top cross anyway, is from top, here I go, top right to bottom left. And that's me. I do that as well. And I just feel that makes more sense to me anyway, because when you do a half stitch, you know how some patterns, you have your full crosses, but part of the pattern wants you to do a half cross. Well, the half cross is always from top right to bottom left. So if your full crosses are top right to bottom left, it all has a harmony about it. Whereas I would have thought that if your top cross, you know, top part of your cross, is from top left to bottom right, then your half ones are going to be opposite to that. Unless you do your half stitches that way, in which case I suppose it would be harmony. But anyway, everybody does their own thing. That's just a small observation I made. Anyway, here is Kerry's lovely piece that she fashioned into a pillow for me. And, oh no, she did say on her video, she said, originally the design, here it is here, isn't that just the most lovely work there? Just look at her stitching. And I don't know if you can pick it up, but this fabric is sparkly fabric. And as I said to her, I love me a bit of sparkle. Just divine. And from her hands to mine. And what I've stitched will be from my hands to her. What more could you expect or have or revere than someone else's stitching that they've sent to you? And she did say that she was thinking about doing edging on there, but she changed her mind, and I think she made a very good decision there, because the stitching says everything. Beautiful work. And on her last video she did mention this, and she said that the fabric is called Eeyore. Eeyore was the donkey in Winnie the Pooh stories, I think, Eeyore. Special edition 2019 Jodery Designs. Oh no, hang on. Fabric Kaleidoscope 28 count. Well, where did I get Eeyore from? Oh, that's the colours, sorry. Yes, the actual fabric colour is Kaleidoscope. And the colours that she used are Hawkeye and Eeyore. And originally the design was black and white, she said. But she chose her own colours. And lovely they are too. Yes. So thank you so much, Kerry. And as soon as that piece that I've done for you is out of the framers, it'll be heading its way over to you. So I did ask the framer about sending it, and he said, as long as you use plenty of bubble wrap, you should be all right. So hopefully the bubble wrap will do its job for you. It's by no means a massive piece, but yeah, a lot of thought has gone into it. Bless your heart, Kerry. So now, was there anything else? Oh yes, that's right, I have to just show you a couple of my finishes. I should say one of them has got a little bit of a story to it. And the other one is, if anyone remembers, Dolphin's Domain that I showed. It's a Dimensions. I've finished that, but now I've fully finished it now. I've popped it into a frame. My daughter got me, well, we went shopping and she bought me some frames that I picked out. All very ordinary, plain frames. And this one actually works quite well because it looks like driftwood to me. And yes, so here is Dolphin's Domain, all framed. And I think anyone who, I don't know if I mentioned it on my video about the rippling effect of my stitching and everything, and how it really doesn't show once it's in a frame. Well, here's an example of that. That it pretty much doesn't show. I think these lights are pretty brutal. You know, they show every single bit. That's why you have the lighting, so that you can see well, but it does show up things that really don't show in the naked eye. And this also is a reminder that with dimensions you don't really have to do all the threads that they tell you to, like 5 threads or 3 threads or whatever. You can pretty much do what you like. You know, I mean, you want to use the blended threads by all means, but you can still get a 3D effect, because I think that's why Dimensions say they want you to use more threads than just the 2 threads to create the 3D. But I didn't use all of the 3. You know, some I did, some I didn't, and I think that's the thing. You can just do your own thing to a degree, as long as you're sensible with it. But I just adore that. I think it's really very nice. So that was one of my FFOs. And it didn't take long to do it either, because I don't take long when I'm framing. Now this piece that I'm going to just show you now, this is a little saga. About 20 years ago, my late mother-in-law, bless her heart, she asked my husband to bring up some of my stitching so she could have a look at some of my pieces. So I sent up, 7 or 8, or whatever it was. I think it was 8 pieces. Anyway, 8 went up and 7 came back. And I thought, what's happened there? And she said, I've kept one, she said, here, and I'm going to get it framed for you, she said, and, you'll get it back one day. Bless her heart. Anyway, 20 years later, I did get it back. She passed last year, and 98. So she had a very good innings, and she was very active right up until the day she was called home. So, that's nice. So anyway, here's the picture. And it's the poppies. I've got, I stitched also another one with the sea in the background, which is very similar to this one. But this glass is the precursor to the museum glass that you can get now that doesn't reflect. Well, this one, yeah, it doesn't reflect, but it does take away some of the detail. So I think really I'd probably need to change the glass. But in any case, she kept her promise, and it did come back to me. So that's the poppies. And there's something about poppies, isn't there? They're very, with their symbolism and everything else, and how beautiful they are. Now, was there anything else that I have to tell you? I don't think so. I think what I'll do now is just continue with the Skating Minister, and when he's finished, well, I don't know, maybe I'll come back before then. I don't really know. We'll just leave it at that, I think. Well, that's all from me now. I would like to wish everybody all the best with their coming days and what's happening, and that things will go well. And until next time, it's Mary Rose signing off. Bye for now.